And I think like you, Mareya, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm a jump the canyon kind of person. I know it's hard to imagine just hearing me on the podcast. It's like, do it all, do it now, get it done.
Hi, I'm Mareya, otherwise known as the Fit Foodie. I'm a chef, holistic nutritionist, author, inventor, and mom. And I want to welcome you to my podcast. It's called Recipes for Your Best Life. And with every episode, I'm peeling back the onion on fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, and family. The truth is, you're the chef of your life. And for every important pillar, there's a great recipe worth sharing. So every week, we'll explore them together. Think of it as food for thought that you can really sink your teeth into. So join me, and let's squeeze the joy out of this life, because you only get one. Can I get a fork, yeah? I am so thrilled to welcome Tana Amen, my good friend and my sister in health. She is not only a BSN and an RN, but she's the executive vice president of the Amen Clinics and a New York Times best-selling author. She wrote the Omni Diet, the Brain Warrior's Way, the Brain Warrior's Way Cookbook, the 10-Day Brain Boost Cookbook, and so many other life-changing books. But what I love about her is her fight. She's a highly respected health and fitness expert. She's a cancer survivor. She practices martial arts regularly, and she has a black belt in Kempo, karate, and taekwondo. So even though she's beautiful on the outside, she is somebody you don't want to mess with. Very, very much a warrior that takes care of herself. And it came from necessity, which you'll find out about in this episode. And we're going to dive into the importance of brain health and what you can do to make some really, really significant adjustments in your brain health with your plate. You knew that food was going to work its way in there, right? All right, let's listen to Tana. This is going to be a meaty one. Tana?
Yes.
It's so nice to have you on, my dear.
Oh, it's so fantastic. Thanks for having me.
So I have been a huge fan of yours for a very long time, and your work with brain health is something to me that I feel like this should almost be like required learning. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you developed the Brain Warrior's Way book with your husband, Daniel Amen, and what it means to have good brain health?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. We always joke, actually, it's not a joke. We say that, this is stuff that should start being taught in second grade.
Yes.
It's all stuff that you're never going to use again. But the one thing that can literally save your life and change the trajectory of your life is completely ignored. And so we don't really understand that, but we've actually created a high school course for that reason.
Oh, that's so great.
That's in thousands of schools. It's actually great. But interesting story. So when I met my husband, before we were together, I was a neurosurgical ICU nurse. I worked in trauma and neurosurgical ICU. So I took care of patients in the very acute phase of having problems, of having injuries and things like that. And so we connected and we just clicked right away. He takes care of the chronic phase when things are going, for years later. And so it was just a really good match. And we just blended really well. So we've both been very involved in taking care of people, if you will, for a long time. Right. I started to get really interested in what he does because he was the first psychiatrist I had ever heard of that actually made psychiatry about the brain. And I've never really had a fondness for psychiatry, if you will.
We won't tell Daniel, no.
He knows. I almost canceled my first date with him. Oh, here we go. I don't want to be psychoanalyzed. And I wasn't into the whole thing. But when I found out he's a neuropsychiatrist, so he really focuses on the brain more than anything else. And I love that. So when I started understanding his work, it just made so much sense to me. And I think it helps. It makes it medical less than moral, if you will. So people are more compliant.
It seems to me that what you guys do too with the brain scans, which is something that I want to talk about as well, is something that psychiatrists don't do, which is kind of mind-boggling, that you're analyzing people and their emotions and you're helping them along, but you can't actually see the control center. So
Right.
when you can see it, doesn't it help you with being able to diagnose and treat?
Dramatically, because how would we know if your behavior is being caused because you had a head injury or because you've had toxic exposure or because you have, there's so many things that can change the way you behave, and it depends on how your brain was affected and where. So that's why it's so helpful. It's like giving us a map, and it's just amazing.
So you can actually see, and I want to talk about what being a brain warrior means, but just so people listening can understand, can you describe what happens when you have a brain scan?
Yeah. So what we do is it's a scan called SPECT. Okay. And why SPECT is different than, say, an MRI or a CT scan. We use MRIs and CTs all the time in the hospital. We actually use SPECT scans too, but they're different. So CT scans and MRIs are anatomical scans. They look at the anatomy. So I'll use your computer as an example. Let's just say you dropped your computer right now.
Oh gosh.
Like horrifying thought.
Devastating.
You drop your computer and it looks fine on the outside. You run it through an MRI or a CT scan, anatomically it looks fine. But when you go to plug it in and turn it on, it ain't running right? There's something wrong with the circuitry. So that's what SPECT does. SPECT looks at how are the circuits working? How's the blood flow? How is it connecting? What's going on? How is it functioning? Not just how does it look?
Right.
So, and SPECT is a leading indicator of problems because of that, whereas MRI and CT scan are lagging indicators, meaning the problem, it already has to have occurred. So whereas we can see problems coming.
And so what does it look like when you have a healthy brain versus maybe a brain that has been affected, like you said, by a trauma or by a physical injury? What do you see that's different?
Well, it'd be really fun to be able to show the scans. But what you see is it's a picture. It looks like a scan, but it's sort of a picture of a brain in scan form, if you will. And on the surface, it's very full and fat. It looks very even. Okay, so it's full, fat. It's not very bumpy. It doesn't have what looks like holes in it. There's no holes in it. When you see a damaged brain, it looks like holes. They're not actual holes, okay? And you don't have holes in your brain. We actually had one of our young stars post his visit, and he put his caption, I think it was clickbait, but he posted, "My brain has holes in it." It doesn't have holes in it, okay? But it got a lot of traction, right?
That's funny.
Because it looks like holes because that's where the blood flow is low. Wherever you have a lack of blood flow, a lack of activity, it looks like holes. So if you see an unhealthy scan, that's what you're going to see. Bumpiness, holes. Now, when it comes to overactive and underactive, the inside part of the brain will be like the underactive parts will just be sort of like there'll be no color. The overactive parts will be super red or hot white. We call that a hot brain. That's overactive. That's someone with like OCD or severe anxiety. Like those people like that, or who have suffered from PTSD.
I see.
So we can see not only like when it's been damaged from physical trauma, we can see when you've been hurt emotionally.
So when you're able to see that, then what are the protocol? And I would love to be able to link to some of these photos. We can share a link in the show notes so people can actually physically see what you're describing. But what are the protocols that you then go through in order to help people heal? Is that what the Brain Warriors Way is?
Yes. So obviously the reason the scans are so important to us, they are not how we make a diagnosis, but they are a major part of it, right? So they're a piece of the puzzle, and they're a big piece of the puzzle. So if you come to our clinic, you're going to spend a couple of days with us. It's very, very thorough. But the reason that the scan is so important is because we will take all of your symptoms, but we don't make diagnoses by symptoms.
I see.
Just like your doctor, if you went to the doctor with chest pain, he's not going to give you the diagnosis of chest pain, but that's what they do when someone goes in with depression. They give them the diagnosis of depression without telling them why. So what the scans do is they help us say, well, what's causing your depression? Is it because your brain's overactive or underactive? And that changes how treatment is sometimes, well, almost always. In fact, we published a study showing that it changed the way psychiatrists performed treatment, how they treated patients 85% of the time. So the scans made a big difference because it gave them a target.
Mm.
So that's why.
Do you find that the treatments, so let's talk about nutrition, because I know that that's something that you and I share very deeply. What role does nutrition play in the treatments?
The cornerstone, and that surprises people. So you asked me about what a brain warrior is. So just to give you a really quick rundown on that, because that's a big part of why nutrition is the cornerstone of what we do. My husband was an Army doctor, and my reason for being a warrior is because I was almost raped when I was 15. I was walking to high school and I was attacked and I was almost raped. And I made a decision way back then that I refused to be a victim to anyone. And I started training in martial arts and working out really hard and trying to figure out what it meant to be healthy and strong so I would not be a victim again. So now fast forward many years, I've been practicing martial arts for a long time. And so being a warrior, having a warrior mindset is really important to both of us. Mm-hmm. And we believe you are in a war. You are in a war for the health of your brain, the health of your body. All you have to do is look around at our society and look at all the toxic messages coming from, Crisis News Network, any of the news channels, right. The toxic messages, the constant, drama, trauma, the food messages. Mm-hmm. They are literally training us like Pavlov's dogs. Bet you can't eat just one. We remember these jingles decades later.
That's so true.
Yeah, we are being trained, and basically, it's a war. So they're using sex to sell food. They're using all of these things. Neuroscientists are creating food that physically make food or physiologically make food completely addictive to you, and you don't have any control over it. It actually triggers a part of your brain called the bliss point. So
those are foods really that come in that are processed.
Absolutely. They put the right combinations of fat, sugar, salt in them, and they the right crunchiness, the right texture, the right meltiness. They literally study all of this. They create food because it's critical to the survival of their brand.
It's so deceptive.
And it's basically their thought wasn't, well, we want to just trash the health of America initially. It was because their brand had to survive over other brands. Right. But it's turned into something that's made our society very unhealthy. So you have to be, here's the reason, that's where the warrior comes in. So that's why we say it's a war. Now people will often say, but I don't want to fight. I don't want to be a warrior. Okay, well then if you don't want to fight, then be a peaceful warrior, be a Gandhi, be a Jesus, okay? Right. But be aware, prepared, and avoid the fight. The only way you can avoid a fight is to be prepared and aware.
Well, and I think, and I know you agree with this, the best way to arm yourself is by being educated. And I think, unfortunately, when you follow popular media and all of the diets that are out there, everybody's just trying to get you to subscribe to what they're offering or buy their products. So there's a lot of manipulation of data. And at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that the cornerstone of a healthy eating plan, I don't like to use the word diet, but a healthy eating plan is non-starchy vegetables and a wide variety of them.
Absolutely. And basically it's basically whole foods. If it grows on a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, avoid it. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to avoid it 100%. You avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason, and that's where the warrior concept came in. Be armed, prepared, aware, avoid the fight when you can, and know how to fight when you have to. That's what we learn in martial arts.
Yeah, and you are a warrior physically and emotionally. You guys, when you see Tana, she is the picture of strength and beauty. But I think, I'm really curious, when you look at the scans, when you have patients that come into the Amen clinic, is there like a certain group of nutrients or macronutrients that are commonly missing from people who are suffering with different disorders? I'm just curious if there's like a common denominator that you see often.
Yeah, so obviously we don't believe one thing fits everyone, not even one diet plan. Keto works for some people like a magic bullet. It's definitely not good for everybody, especially regarding your brain. So being a vegan, for some people it works as long as they're willing to supplement and pay attention to what they have to supplement with. It definitely doesn't work for everybody. So we're not into this whole one plan fits all. It's really based on your health profile. So when you come to see us, so we use a concept called mastery. Okay. In the Brain Warriors way, we